This is MFG Out Loud. Courageous conversations about sales and marketing for today's manufacturers. With your hosts, Ray Zaganto and Allison DeFore.
Hey, Trailblazers, how you doing? Welcome to the latest episode of MFG Out Loud, episode number 6,729, or something like that. Anyway, hey, our guest today is somebody really special, and we're so excited to have him with us. We have Mr. Jack Burley, who is the Vice President of Sales and Engineering, not sales engineering, but sales and engineering at Big Kaiser Precision Tooling. So if you don't already know, Big Kaiser is a worldwide leader in high precision tooling systems and solutions for the metal cutting industry, and they guarantee extreme accuracy and repeatability. Their products are utmost quality, best materials, craftsmanship, enable superior performance. So if you're in an industry or working with clients that demand extreme precision and reliability, you're either already working with Big Kaiser or you certainly should be, and this is the guy you need to be talking to. So that's the professional side. What's really cool about Jack and what has got our attention, aside from the cool company he's with, he's really what I would call an experience accumulator. And I made that up. And what that is that's somebody that really puts an effort into paying attention to the lessons learned along the way and building upon those experiences. Jack really is the sum of what he's observed and applied throughout his career, and has some really fascinating insights that he's going to share with us today. Jack, we are so glad to have you with us on the show today. Welcome to MFG Out Loud.
Well, thank you, Ray. I'm really pleased to be here, and I'm really happy that you picked me for episode 6,729 because it's a monumental episou that must be very, very important. So
I'm not sure if that's a prime number, but we're oh, hey, let's jump right into the courageous conversation. When we first talked about having you on board, we always start out with, hey, tell us a bit about your journey. And you brought up, says, have I told you about the Book of Boring? And I thought that was an interesting place to start. What's this Book of Boring thing you talk about?
Well, it's not what most people might think it is. It's not about how to be boring. We can all be boring, but our industry has metal cutting. One of its key processes is called boring, making holes very precisely, making them bigger, making them round, all kinds of geometry. But when I got started into this business, I came out of engineering school and worked behind the old drafting boards for a while, but they assigned me to a product management level, which means that I was going to be the resident expert in my field, which was boring. And we represented a product, which we still do, from Switzerland, called the Kaiser boring system. And they sent me over to Switzerland for training. And when I got back, I was supposed to be the U.S. resident expert on everything that we needed to know. And the Book of Boring is something I blogged about 2 months ago. I brought it out because we were having a conversation. We were having a global sales and marketing meeting about a year ago, and we had the Swiss in from their team, and we had a couple people from Japan. But I got on the idea. I said, "Did you guys all know what the Book of Boring is?" And they all looked at me, the Swiss and the Germans, like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Well, it's this book that Kaiser put out back in the 80s. They made me read it." And they're like, "They never heard of it. What are you talking about?" So I brought it out, but it gave me the idea to talk about that and to explain my little journey of how I went to Switzerland. And they threw it in front of me after a few days and said, "You must study this, and we'll talk about it in the morning." And I did what any other young engineer would do, and I went back to my room and I quickly glanced through all the pages. Whatever. And they said, "There's some very important stuff in here. You should really learn this." And I got back to the United States. I was now the captain of my ship, and they sent me out on one of the most critical jobs they could. And it was a tough one. And as I got into this application and was able to resolve it, the light went on, and it was like, it's in the book. And I had that book and I reread it. And when you reread something, when you're really looking for something, it's all insightful. You want to pick up everything. So it was a matter for me. The light turned on. And I've had that book for 30 years. So when I blogged it, I said, let's make this public again, because some people like to see the history. And so we blogged on this, and we had a PDF that they could download at the end. And we had an amazing number of people hit on that because they were really interested to hear what's in this book of boring.
That's awesome. That's an awesome story. And you'd also shared an insight on that with regard to how it kind of when you were in Switzerland and you read the book, it was all data. When you were in front of the client, now you had context
Yes.
for it, and you had some thoughts on how to apply it, which I thought was an interesting observation.
It's amazing how the memory works when you really need to, when you're under pressure. And I was under a little pressure, and all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, there's something in the book. And went back, looked at it, looked up what I needed to do, and it was like, it pulled me out of a real hot spot.
That's
and
awesome.
So I wanted to make that something that other people, and I just was talking to one of my young engineers here, and I said, hey, did you read that book of boring blog yet? And he's like, yeah, I kind of realized. I said, you did exactly what I did. You cursed over it. You didn't really pay attention. Now you're going to need that someday, and I can't tell you when, but just remember it's there. It's an asset. I want to take advantage.
Well, and one thing I think is the most unique thing about you, and even of all the guests that we've had so far in all 6,000 Shamalama episodes, is that your title is not, like Ray said, you're not engineering sales, you're sales and engineering. And if I'm not mistaken, marketing too, right? So that's an unusual combination. And I think people listening would be real interested to hear the story behind that.
Yeah, I think the journey, I started in engineering, which it's a great profession. And I still like the analytical side of what I do. I like looking at drawings. I looking at how we can solve manufacturing problems. Always have. And that passion has always been part of me. But when I got into this business early, after I got back from Switzerland, I started into it. They put a camera in front of me and said, hey, you're pretty photogenic. Can you take a few pictures of you doing this and you doing that? I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And it kind of like, man, this is kind of fun. Engineering's cool, but the sales and the marketing side was like, this is even more cool. This is fun. I can really get into this. So I got done with that, and I went back to the office, and one of the guys was putting a catalog together, and he was doing it the hard way, I thought. He's cutting pictures out, and he's taping them down, and I said, what are you doing? He's like, well, this is how we paginate a catalog. I said, that's the only way you do that? It looks kind of interesting, but can I look at this a little bit differently? So I got online. There was a system, a program called Corel. I don't know if they make it anymore. Anybody heard of Corel Draw?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So I got on there and I said, hey, for $500 subscription, we get Corel. I can do this on the computer. This is back in 1987, 88. So we kind of went from the old board of making catalogs to using Corel. So the journey that started in engineering, it really quickly went over to the marketing and sales side because of my interest. And I never lost the interest for the engineering. I always liked that. So I always retained it. And as I elevated over more doing in the sales, doing more in the marketing, I still kept my hands in the engineering side. So the best part of that is I can help salespeople, the sales team, when they need something, to push it through the engineering department. Say, sometimes engineers get very conservative because they feel like, if this doesn't work, it's going to be on me. And I'm on the top saying, you know what? We have to take risks. It's all about the journey of taking risks once in a while. You got to get out of your comfort zone. And that's what sales does a great job of it, because they want to solve the problem. They want to make sure they can try to get the sale. But that roadblock between sales and engineering always occurs because of the fear of taking the risk, making the journey on one side, and pushing a little too hard on the other side. So sometimes sales does ask for some of the impossible, and somebody does have to remind them that that's just cheating physics. You can't do that. Let's rein this in. So being in charge of sales and engineering, I think, is unique, but it is a huge segue for our company because we are still a very technically focused product that does require both sides pushing to this common goal.
One of the things I'd love for you to share while I'm thinking of it is you've mentioned a couple of times blogs and the blogs that you've posted, and I know I'm a fan and a follower, and I see your stuff. But for our audience, how long have you been blogging, and at what frequency?
We've been blogging at least 10, 12 years, and we blog consistently 4 times a month.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing because we come across. Absolutely. We talk to so many manufacturers in all kinds of areas that are like, oh, this social media this, or can't do blogging that, nothing to say here, or whatever. And you're like the poster guy for engineer that wants to solve problems, and you're using that as a tool to do that, to share ideas with the audience.
Well, it is an interesting thing because what you say is they're getting the content. The smaller companies, that's their big struggle. And the smaller companies might have HR trying to do their social media. They're also trying to get the blogs, and they're going over to engineers once in a while or sales guys and saying, hey, you got something interesting I can post? No, I really don't. Come back to me next week. Maybe I'll think of something, and they don't do it. So it's really hard to stay on task. And once you build up that routine to say, we got a content calendar, we're going to stick to it, you put something out. And you always try to put some original stuff out. But again, going back to, do the engineers have something? Not this week. How about sales? Do they have anything? Not this week. You still got something sitting in the old cupboard that you can bring out and say, okay, we still got our standbys. We got our reserve tank because we really didn't come up with whatever we had before. And I think what helps us is we do use an agency, and that agency is really important to keep us on task. Without that, I think it's too easy. Somebody goes on vacation, somebody's not available, let's just take this week off. And as soon as you start taking time off, it's amazing how fast you get out of the routine. And then before you know it, you're like, okay, instead of 4 times a month, we're down to 1. Or we're skipping months altogether. So that routine is very important, the content calendar, and staying on top of it. And try to plan it out 3 months because it's gonna be a lot of content you got to come up with.
Well, don't you think the accountability of, at least that's what we see with clients, and I'm feeling like that you're gonna support that. It's that holding you accountable to stick to that content calendar that everybody agreed to. And because otherwise, like you said, it gets real easy to, slump back into, we only did 3 this month. That's okay. Next month. And then all of a sudden you're like, we've got nothing in the tank. We got nobody that has anything to say. And they'll just let the blog go by the wayside, which I've seen people do. So do you feel like that accountability has really helped you?
Having multiple hands in the cookie jar helps a lot. Because there's not just one person at the end of the day that says, I'm responsible for this, I got to make it happen. There's multiple people. Me, my marketing communications person, our agency, people in the marketing department, they're all held accountable that if we don't get this done, it's a team. It's not just falling back on the one person. So because there's so many people, I think we can ultimately say, on a Monday team meeting, it's like, we really don't have that. I'll come up with something. I'll find it. We'll have it by Wednesday. Or, let's redo a content on this and polish this a little bit. There's been some changes there. Sometimes you got to repost. And there's nothing wrong with something that you posted 10 years ago that's still relevant. And, it's amazing how many people might have read it 10 years ago, how many won't read it now, So sometimes you got to dust off some stuff and pull it back out. It's still relevant. Use it. Keep using it. Don't make it stale, but try to use what you got.
That's awesome. It strikes me that being a technical guy, but also so close to the customer and the sales side, you're really on the from just for your product standpoint, you're in a phenomenal position to be able to drive, innovation, within the organization. Hey, I'm seeing these patterns among our customers. If we could solve this problem, boy, it might be a new product or a better upgrade or something like that. But you also innovate in other aspects of the business, not to take away from the cool stuff you do with your products and those things, but even on the sales and marketing side, you're doing some things. You shared with us even now. You're experimenting and trying some different approaches to grow. Share with our listeners a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah. It's COVID's changed how we go to market. Obviously, we can't make the sales calls we used to. One of our largest trade shows, called the IMTS here in Chicago and McCormick, was canceled for the first time since, I think, World War II. They're not postponing or anything. So that's a huge place for us to get new contacts. We gotta have new contacts all the time. So we pull in, more digital assets on our marketing side. We actually added some money to that, but we decided, there's a new campaign called account-based marketing, ABM. And it was introduced to us about 3 months ago as an alternative to the trade show. So we got to get some new leads to our sales team that, obviously can't just go out and make pop-in calls and say, hey, I'm here, let's talk about what you're doing. And what account-based marketing does is it allows us to focus on a very specific product that's going after a very specific clientele. So we've picked a little bit of the hotter markets like medical. We've got some revolutionary new product there that we wanted them to focus on, and defense. Both markets are kind of hot. The advantage of this is it's all digital. We do it through LinkedIn. So the cost is just development and the website. We're just trying to get a contact back. So somebody says, hey, I really saw this as an interesting idea. And they reply to it, and it gives the salesman somebody to call. Compared to print media, way less expensive. I can run this campaign for 3 or 4 months versus, print ad for almost twice the money. It's done in one issue. And I'm not saying that we don't use print media anymore, but when you're looking at COVID times, it's a little bit outside the box that you're going to have to start looking at. Just don't rely on one avenue for generating new leads. You got to start getting experimental. And we'll see how it works. LinkedIn's a powerful tool out there. And if you can hit the right people with the right titles, you can make it geography wise where you want it to focus. Like if we're saying our guys out in New England are really struggling right now, let's hit them. We don't have to hit the whole market. We can just hit a very specific segment. So that's where account-based marketing could be a real big leverage in the future.
Well, and the other benefit to that, I'm glad you brought up print, because I'm still a fan of print as you are. But as you know, with ABM, it's all measurable. So versus a print ad, unless you're using a QR code or a specific landing page to send people to, or a specific 800 number, it's really hard to measure the results directly from that particular ad or that particular ad series. And so I've often called print ads they're more like insurance. So it's speaking on your behalf consistently, which consistency breeds familiarity, familiarity breeds trust. So it's all, people are seeing you. And so when they have a need, oh yeah, I've seen them 12 times in a row. They're the first thing I think of. But with this, it's absolutely positively trackable. And
measurable. Yep.
You can see what were our metrics from that activity, from that ad spend. And I think it makes it a lot easier to sell it to any resistors in your group. Do you think?
Yeah. And what's going back to your comments about print, they are evolving. Some of the print isn't just making magazines anymore. They're becoming more data suppliers. They can actually do things that they didn't in the past, but because they do print, but they also do digital of all their issues, the smarter pubs are coming back and saying, you know what, we can actually tell you on some of your ads and some of your stories that you submitted for us, who's responding, how much frequency, what type of content's working better for you than others, and get some real-time feedback to help justify their needs. So there's going to be a place for prints and how they're evolving for a long time. That's definitely not going away, but there are other avenues that have to be explored.
Well, I think just real quick, because I love marketing. The thing that so many people are also not taking advantage of is if they even have a blog at all, which they should. So you were an early adopter, and that's really incredibly prolific and smart on your part. But what they don't do is then turn that one conversation into 15 different conversations, right? Taking, a bit and a piece from that larger body of content, and that's what you're going to send out and start social media conversations with. And then you're going to repurpose those into, say, a video or to a landing page, so it's just all interconnected. And if you plan it properly, you can turn one blog post into 15 different conversations. And why people don't take advantage of that, I think most of the time it's because they don't know how to do it, but it's possible.
You really should have a strategy there too, because every blog has a title, and that title has to be very meaningful to drive traffic to Google. So the crawlers of Google know that here's some relevant topic keywords that they're using, that when somebody searches book and boring or whatever, these things come to you through Google. So it's a strategy of putting everything out there to make it searchable. And you don't just throw up stuff and expect the money to start falling. You got to really think through how you want to do it. Keywords, key phrases. What is Google looking for? They're looking for relevant content. Can't be sales pitchy. It's got to be relevant and technical if you're in a technical field.
Exactly. And semantic search, because it's no longer just keywords, but it's phrases. How people are searching. How would they describe, if they were looking for anything having to do with boring, consider the semantic sentence structure of a search, not just those one words. So I'm glad you said that too. I know.
Sorry, Ray, we're getting off your track.
Hey, you guys are awesome. You guys, this is like marketing master's class. I love it. So Jack, a couple of quick questions. How does Big Kaiser go to market? You've got direct sales. Do you use distributors as well? Is it a hybrid?
It's mostly through distribution. Industrial distribution's been around for ages. It's still the first choice for most of our customers to buy.
Okay.
You've got the large catalog houses, and you've got the small, geographically located, close to proximity distributors. So in total, we've got about 100 distributors in the United States.
Wow.
50 very active, 25 probably represent 75% of our business.
Sure.
They're given a discount, if you will, on the product that
Sure.
they carry to cover the books and whatnot. But we then have direct selling representatives that support that, but they don't do the billing. They're just there to support. They're there to help the customers understand what we're about. So
right.
It's evolving now. It's a little bit, electronics industry, I think, went through it many years ago, where they were all through distribution, and there's still distributors, but there's not nearly as many. It's all along the line. So we're watching carefully. E-commerce is, everybody likes to be the ease of buying online. Why do I need to go talk to another industrial distributor if I know what I want? I've just looked it all up on your website. I put it in your shopping cart. Let me just put a purchase order, a credit card to this.
Yeah,
it's not that easy. And we're trying to manage an evolving situation very, very carefully. But we'll see how it changes. But we want to be careful not to alienate our real long-term partners who still do a incredible service for us.
Yeah.
And without them, I don't think we'd be successful as much as we are.
Yeah. No, makes sense. That makes sense. I had probably the last and maybe the biggest burning question we have for our listeners is, given how much you see on both sides of the desk for your own company, as well as the client companies that you serve in the manufacturing industry, what advice would you give to other manufacturing companies? Because they're all, again, we talk to all, owners and presidents of companies all the time. And they're like, this, it used to just be quality and delivery and our people were number one. Now we actually have to, it's a much different world today, and the social media thing. What advice would you give to them? How would you encourage them to help them grow their business, be more effective?
Well, if we're talking about like our customers or people in our world,
Sure.
as far as growing their business, the first thing about people who talk about quality, our slogan is economy of quality. I think it's pretty catchy. Some people think that means it's cheap. I said no. It means it's the cost of doing business. Sometimes you got to pay a little bit more to pay less at the end. And quality is a big part of it, but it's got to be there. You can't even say that you're a good company unless the quality is right there. So it starts coming down to personal relationships, how well your reputation is in the market. There's very, very dynamic things to go in there, but at the end of the day, a lot of people want to grow by buying. They just want to buy other companies, and that's fine. That's new markets, get you into new territories that you aren't before, and there's usually a lot of problems that go with that kind of growth. I like the organic growth. I think that if you can build from within and expand your products systematically around the core, you got the tree, the trunk, that's your core products, and the branches are the little add-ons that you like to put into it that help supplement that. Just pick those add-ons that supplement the trunk. And that way you can manage it, and you'll grow in a very slow, methodical way that you can manage. If you try to do it too much, too quick, you're going to probably make some people a little mad, because you're probably going to fail somewhere that you didn't plan to. You're going to have a lot of cultures that might not come together the way you plan to. So I like the organic growth best. And I think if you do it with a plan that you say, this product and this product, if we added it, supplement this other one, we can see a small growth. So for example, we're a year in this industry, we weren't typically in the Swiss style of machines, with the gang slides and all that. And I was with a medical customer a couple of years ago, and we were talking about one of our other products in the tool holding side. And he said, yeah, I wish we could have a product like that that goes into our Swiss machines. And I got to thinking about it. I said, why can't we?
Yeah.
This is a great example of something from another technology that we wouldn't have normally thought to use over there. And it's like, we can, and we have, and it's really a revolutionary new product. It's really reduced the time that these companies need to change tools from minutes to seconds.
Wow.
That's a little more expensive, but it's growth around a tree that we already know how to do.
Yeah.
It's just changed where we're purposing it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Great insights. Well, Allison, we were right. This could go on forever.
Yes. Went a little long, but you know what? So worth it.
Oh my God. That was fantastic.
So worth it. Well, gosh, Jack, we cannot thank you enough. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up. Any final parting words that you want to share with our listeners?
After 30 years in this particular company and a few more before that, it is a journey. And, if I would say something, to myself as an engineer coming out of school, where did I see myself now? Probably didn't envision myself being this indoctrinated in sales and marketing. I thought I'd probably be okay with just staying with what I was doing in engineering, but growth is phenomenal. And I think the more you expand on who you are and what you want to do, look to those horizons, and it's amazing what you can do once you see it. So keep an eye out for it, and there might be some things out there that maybe you don't think of as important, like SEO. Who wants to think about SEO if you're an engineer? Well, what does it even mean? Well, it could be something once you learn about it, it might excite you a little bit that you want to do more. So that'd be all. Don't stay in your comfort zone. Sometimes you got to get out and explore. You got to fail a little bit, but learn. It's really important.
I love that. Well, gosh, if for those of you who are listening regularly and aren't yet subscribed to MFG Out Loud, we would sure appreciate it if you would do that. And if you find value in this, please share it with a colleague because sharing is caring. And also, if you would care to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we appreciate that. As I've said before, not for our own ego, but to show other people that this is maybe worth listening to and to give it a try. So I'm going to let Ray take us out. Thank you for being part of this tribe of trailblazers, everybody who is listening. And what do we say, Ray?
We say keep manufacturing out loud because we need you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to MFG Out Loud with Ray Zaganto and Allison DeFore. You can subscribe and find show notes at mfgoutloud.com.